Tonight, in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television, we evaluate sports infrastructures ahead of the visit of the CAF inspection mission here across the national territory. We tell you how, in this edition of the news, how some sports infrastructures are still to be completed or still to convene some delegations of the confederations of African football that are due to visit Cameroon in a few days from now. Also in this edition of the news, we take you to the National Assembly and also the Senate to talk about the Social Democratic Front MPs and senators that have vowed to continue pressing on the need for the Anglophone crisis to be included on the agenda. And as far as the crisis is concerned, Momo Division of the Northwest region of Cameroon is praying for peace. We'll tell you more in this edition of the news. We shall be right back. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Let's begin right here in the nation's political capital, where senators of the Social Democratic Front have maintained that the Anglophone crisis must be included on the agenda as far as the June session of Parliament is concerned. They were speaking at the start of the plenary sitting which opened in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, yesterday. Let's now have the details with Innocent Azen.
The June ordinary session of Parliament opened hate-free at the level of the upper house. But the SDF senators announced they are prepared to intensify actions for the Anglophone crisis to feature on the agenda. SDF Senator Henry Kemende makes it clear that they will continue mounting pressure such that the crisis is given pride of place and a veritable inclusive dialogue designed for it. On the part of the Senate President Marcel Nyat-Njufenji, the advanced point by the SDF is reasonable, but he calls on the SDF senators to avoid interruption of plenary sittings and wide confrontations. But to the SDF senators, going by the Senate President's wish means minimizing the Anglophone crisis. Senator Kemende says they will move on with disruptions when the real issues are neglected at the Senate.
On ne peut pas négliger le droit parce que c'est un petit poignet de cette corps humaine.
In his opening speech, Marcel Nyat-Njufenji announced the putting in place of a group of persons in the days ahead who will work on reflecting and formulating proposals that will accelerate the decentralization process in Cameroon. A handful of seats were vacant during the opening of the plenary sitting of the Senate, but the upper house moved on with deliberations in the presence and watchful eyes of the Constitutional Council members and government authorities, headed by Prime Minister Head of Government Philemon Yang.
And before calling for peace and stability across the national territory, the Anglophone crisis must be discussed at the level of the upper house of Parliament. That is the view of Senator Henry Kemende of the Social Democratic Front, who was speaking to our reporter Ike Cyril. Let's hear him in the following excerpt.
Well, I can say it's religious, congratulating the head of state and saying what the Senate is going to do and what happened in the past Senate, and reaffirming the position of the government, of the state, vis-a-vis what is referred to as a Anglophone crisis, made up of, as the president calls it, some terrorists who want to set the country upside down. But I don't want to think that we are correct when we keep giving names to people who have decided to look for a different solution to problems that are recognized. I don't think calling them names in order that we kill them doesn't solve the problem, because many persons who may not be within that class, they are within us. Many, even within ministers, within the cabinet, you have people who are Amazonians. You have people who reflect, who reason like the people who are in the forest.
Is the SDF going to keep insisting that the Anglophone issue should be discussed at the Senate?
We must understand ourselves. We must understand, if we are in a dialogue, on the dialogue table, if we are together in the same house called the Senate, we must learn to at least accept others' point of view. Why should it not be discussed? Why should discussing the Anglophone issue be an issue of the SDF? It should be an issue of the entire Cameroonian nation, in all walks of life. It should be an issue if we are actually serious, if we mean business, when we say we are one and indivisible. Then a toe cannot be penning and you say, since it's just a small toe there, you abandon it to itself. Before you discover, it will be sending shockwaves to the heart. And don't be surprised that that toe, the pain that may be radiating from that toe may affect the heart, and the whole body can collapse. The whole body could fail to function. So as long as that toe, we want to keep that toe as part of the body, and as long as we cannot do without that toe, because God created that toe and gave it a use as far as the human body is concerned. If we value that toe, then we must value treating it. We must attribute a lot of importance in treating that toe to make sure that the entire body, which is one and indivisible, will remain intact. For I consider it that we are clowning. We should be jokers if we are saying that Cameroon is one and indivisible, and an Anglophone problem, we don't want to solve it, and we claim that we remain one and indivisible. We must solve that problem. We cannot shy away from it. It's just like running away. Escaping from solving or addressing that problem is like running away from your shadow. You cannot. Wherever you go to, your shadow will follow you, as long as we say we are one and indivisible. If not, we'll be making a joke of that slogan, one and indivisible Cameroon. It will be a slogan. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You are welcome.
The SDF Senator Henry Kemende, they're speaking to our correspondents in Yaoundé on the opening of the senatorial session that was yesterday. It continued today in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Now, on the Anglophone crisis, the senior division officer for Momo Division in the northwest region of Cameroon, Absolun Wolwa Monono, has declared that the presence of security forces in the northwest region of Cameroon is to guarantee the safety of the people, and that they would only react after they are being provoked. The SDF was speaking during a special mass to pray for peace in Bangui, attended by security forces and Christians as well as pastors from some 15 denominations in that part of the country. Details in this report. Chanting songs of peace, praying for peace and dancing with peace plans in the Momo Division hit by gun battles and kidnappings. In this Presbyterian Church Mbengui station, Christians from 15 denominations, DOs, mayors, B and the military commanders gathered for a special service dubbed Our Choir Sing for Peace, to pray against discrimination and violence in Anglophone regions of Cameroon.
If we want God to intervene in this nation, the churches must come together to put their hands together. We should stop discrimination and stop preaching about churches, denomination, and preach Jesus. If all Cameroonians put together, invite the Prince of Peace in their lives, then I believe Cameroon will be a peaceful country.
One of those who climbed on stage to preach unity and pray for a future free of burnings, killings and displacements of civilians was the senior divisional officer for Momo Division.
The future that all of us will live in peace. The future that there will be no more killing, there will be no more burning, there will be no more displacement of people within our community. We have come out as a people today in Momo Division to say no to violence.
The commander of the 5th Military Region on his part kicked against the use of arms and said that it can never be a solution to the crisis.
It is also important for us to tell our children that going to the bush does not solve. In order to make this area great, we have to go to school. In September, we have to go to school. And that taking out the gun does not solve.
The message was re-echoed by the senior divisional officer.
Our forces have been reacting to events, and if there is no provocation, I don't think there will be any reaction from our forces, just as he has assured us today. He has said all of us are Cameroonians, and we know that all of us are Cameroonians. There is no need for us to fight and kill each other. And so we are calling on all our brothers and sisters who have taken up arms and who have no right to bear arms to lay down these arms, so that our forces will continue to guarantee the security of our territorial integrity.
The prayer for peace is coming 4 months after the disappearance of the DO for Batibo subdivision. His whereabouts is still unknown, but the killing of civilians and security forces have multiplied in Momo division. Several neighborhoods have simply been deserted by local inhabitants who are worried about their safety. And some officials in Cameroon are now reinforcing security in their respective regions to prevent imminent attacks from the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. That was at the center of discussion during a meeting which took place in Changwest region of the country to talk about security in the entire region. Details with Franklin Mwabe.
Security is a major concern in the west region of Cameroon as the Anglophone crisis deepens. This is because the region borders the northwest and southwest regions that have been hit by gun battles, killings and kidnappings in the past months. Converging on Chang, the governor of the west region, Awafonkwa Augustine, and other local authorities were reflecting on how to foster security and prepare a safe environment to receive internally displaced persons from the conflict-hit regions.
We're very satisfied that we've been implicated in so many rescue operations, in so many military operations, and today we've registered cases where the population have participated to help the administrative authorities and the forces of law and order in this operation. So we're asking them to continue to work in synergy with the authorities concerned, so that the West region should continue to be that place where people are very suitable, where people are welcoming, where people are accommodating, where people are receiving those in distress, like those of the northwest and southwest regions.
The meeting also focused on upcoming elections in Cameroon. Stakeholders discussed on how to facilitate the acquisition of birth certificates, identification cards to citizens before October, when the presidential elections is expected to take place.
The birth certificate, which is a very important document, the basic document in everybody's life, that the population should do everything to have this document in hand, and that this document is very, very capital for the establishment of national identity cards. And this being an electoral year, those who are involved, all the stakeholders involved, be it in birth certificate issues or that of national identity cards, should play their role speedily to permit the population obtain these documents.
During the meeting, the region's readiness to host 2019 AFCON matches was equally evaluated as the governor expressed his satisfaction.
All the stakeholders are preparing for the AFCON 2019, that there are various projects, and these projects are on the way, and that people should remain optimistic as far as the execution of these projects are concerned.
The governor of the West region, Awafonkwa Augustine, urged SDOs and other local government authorities to work in synergy and for the good of the population.
And while the governor of the Western region, Awafonkwa Augustine, is now strategizing on how to secure the region, there are continuous attacks in the far north region of the country. An attack in Magave, Jalingo, that is in Marwa 2 subdivision of the far north region, has left 13 people, including some suspected Boko Haram militants, dead. It should be noted that some suspected Boko Haram militants are said to have stormed the said locality armed with knives, machetes and other sharp objects. That was an incident which occurred yesterday. The village chief as well as his 2 sons were killed in the course of the attack, and 1 person is equally said to have died in the hospital. Security forces immediately launched a counter-attack, and 6 of the attackers were shot dead, and 3 of them have so far been arrested. The governor of the far north region of the country has indicated that Boko Haram militants were behind the attack that took place just a few hours ago, that has left local inhabitants inhabitants in shock and consternation. We shall be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast. Now, 31 teachers of Amity International College here in the economic capital Douala have gone on rampage demanding the administration that is being run by a Turkish national to pay them months of accumulated salaries as well as other social benefits. The strike action took place in Bonanjo, as a reporter Innocent Aze tells us in the following story.
After issuing third-term report cards to students of Amity International College, Bonaprezo Douala, little did the over 31 teachers know the administration will bite them all over when they quest for their unpaid salaries accumulated. They brandished messages on placards at every corner of the establishment, demanding respect of their rights, well calculated by them and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security.
Amity International College has been taken over by a French enterprise in the name of MAFNACAP since June 2017. All the teachers here present took the matter up to the delegation of Labour and Social Security. Labour and Social Security calculated the damages, breach of contract, quit notice for those with long-term contract, and those with short-term contract. They were supposed to be paid the month of June, July and August. We have calculated all the dues. A global sum has been agreed.
Unfortunately for these teachers, the signed agreement is no longer recognized by the administration headed by Turkish nationals. The principal, according to the disgruntled teachers, now plays deaf and dumb game.
We were supposed to go back to the bank, withdraw the money and pay the teachers after giving out the report card. Now we are asking our principal to call his fellow white, who was their representative, one of the signatories to the bank account. He has deliberately refused to call the brother. Today we have insisted that he should call. All what he does is he takes the phone, speaks in the dialect. Today Mr. Principal has forgotten English and French. He no longer speaks English, he no longer speaks French. Today is only the dialect, and we are tired.
Agitating bitterly, the teachers have pledged to hold the director and other Turks hostage until they get the millions of francs CFA saved in the bank account created on the 25th of May 2018, plus their indemnity.
That is why we have said Mr. Director will not go back without presenting the signatory to the bank, so that we go and collect our money and pay the teachers, because our teachers are traveling. We have finished our work. We are at the end of the school year.
Amity International College Bonaprezo Douala has become home of the aggrieved teachers.
We continue with the grievances of other local inhabitants here in the economic capital Douala, whose lives are being threatened by air pollution. At least a dozen of people in Pong Baho, that is in the Bepanda neighborhood of the Douala 5 subdivision, have so far been hospitalized. It is as a result of the explosion of a toxic chemical believed to contain chlorine. The owner of the said toxic chemical is not yet identified. Simanjikan Gabriel has the details in this report.
On the site of the incident, the lorry is still stationed with signs of the explosion that took place in the night of June 7. From the first view, the site of the explosion has been abandoned, and the foam that came out as a result of the incident has taken hostage of the whole zone. Vehicles of a company that produces ice cream but had certainly shut down, all engulfed by the foam. According to an environmentalist, DJ Yim Kwam, it appears it is a substance used in producing foam, and the gas that is emitted contains chlorine. It is the chlorine that attacked those who inhale it. It is the wrongful manipulation of toxic substance by amateurs, and that is the problem of managing industrial waste in Douala.
Il n'y avait aucune traçabilité, et ce scandale écologique rappelle celui du chlorone Kappa.
In the neighborhood, life seems to be returning to normal, but for one problem, that of respiration. because of the gas emitted by the substance that contains chlorine. From every indication, looking at the numbers of containers on the floor, it is alleged that it was a wrongful manipulation of the containers that led to the explosion. Just like any other ecological disaster that has occurred in Douala, no one is yet to be identified to have deposited the chemical in this zone.
And we take you right to it news out of Cameroon. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, has overturned the conviction of war crimes and crimes against humanity of the former Democratic Republic of Congo Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba. Bemba was found guilty in 2016 of crimes committed in neighboring Central African Republic in 2002 and 2003. He was accused of failing to stop his rebels from killing and raping the people, but a judge has now said that he cannot be held responsible for the actions. Friday's decision, that is today, to overturn the 18-year-old or the 18-year sentence was greeted by cheers from his supporters that was in the gallery. And we now talk sports. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development is convinced that ongoing rehabilitation works that are ongoing in Bafoussam West region of the country to host the 2019 AFCON Games to be hosted by Cameroon would be delivered in time. He was speaking while visiting some sports infrastructures in that part of the country. Simanjikan Gabriel tells us more in this report.
With the upcoming CAF inspection visit to Cameroon this month, the Minister of Habitat and Urban Development is on a tour to the different AFCON 2019 construction sites, from the Ndé to Upper Plateau, passing through Kunki and Mifi divisions respectively. Jean-Claude Bouencho was at Tobe, Banjul and the Omispo Stadium of Kwekong, where the first kilometer of work has already started. Before moving to Bafoussam, the Habitat and Urban Development Minister made a stopover at the construction site of road leading to the training pitch of Pete Banjul. At the Bangu Hotel Complex, construction work are moving at a very slow rate because of the lack of funds to the contractors. The blockage of finance is also a major problem for the rehabilitation works at the Bafoussam Regional Hospital instead of works to hasten. Our Fonka Augustine, governor of the West Region, is furious.
Il a déposé. On ne paye pas. Les travaux sont bloqués. Qu'est-ce qu'on me dit là? Enfin, le principe pour dire qu'on n'a pas payé des dépenses.
Before Minister Bouencho's stopover, the president of the local organizing committee for the West Region, our Fonka Augustine, had also made a tour to some construction sites, notably the roads leaving Bafoussam to Yaoundé, the Bamungum Airport and the Gyneko-Obstetric Hospital of Kwekong. After Bafoussam, Minister Jean-Claude Bouencho moved to Bamenda to inspect the ongoing construction work of low-cost houses, and later to Mbuda for the rehabilitation of the Arena Stadium, retained to serve as a training pitch. With the arrival of the CAF inspection team, time waits for nobody.
And as the CAF inspection mission prepares to visit the country, government officials are also doing all they can to assure Cameroon's readiness to host the competition come 2019. The governor of the Central Region, Nasser Paul Biya, equally visited some sports infrastructures in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Today, he was at the Omispo Stadium to evaluate the level of works realized so far. Let's hear him in the following excerpt. He was speaking to Equinox Television.
No, we cannot, for now we cannot talk in terms of percentage. The percentage goes with specific activities in the stadium. But as you know, the last time we came here, what do you call this?
The gradin in French, risers in English.
The risers, and they call them in French gradin, where we just had a few somewhere there. And I asked them to complete putting it, and so I'm sure they have gone at this particular risers or gradin. They are about 60%, as you can see, because it's just remaining a little to complete. For the presidential lodge, there was nothing when we came here, and there are already two levels up, which is they have to be 3 levels, so it's remaining just 1 level. So we take percentage in terms of specific activities, and I think for now I am satisfied with the level of work, because we equally saw the nursery which is coming up. We have a little bit of problem with the training grounds. Which have not evolved much because of specific problems due to the order we had to make for specific kinds of pipes for watering of the training ground. That is what is, because the training ground was supposed to be ready by next month. So because of that delay, we have a bit of delay there. So all in all, we are visibly satisfied with what we have seen, and we came here especially because on the instructions of the head of government to be sure that work is going on, there are no particular problems.
And on the part of contractors in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, they are sure to deliver. Contractors are also sure that they would be able to meet the deadline of the project. Sam Tamin, that of the Grupo Piscini, Cameroon, in charge of Olembe Stadium construction site, tells us more in the following excerpt.
Satisfied with the progress of the work. We have done a lot in the last 3-4 months. We've done a lot since the beginning, but in the last 2-3 months, a lot of people who are specialized in construction call it a miracle. We call it just dedication, we call it seriousness, and we call it a program that we're respecting. So I think the lenses of your cameras can speak for themselves. You can take photos, you can compare the progress and the look of the stadium today to a month ago and 2 months ago, back to January with the first visit from the African Federation of Football, and I think anybody with no commentary can see the difference and can see that you know, it's just logical that this project will be finished on time. The only thing is we will continue with the same effort, we will continue with the same seriousness. Small problems here and there, whoever you know will come and you know, say this is missing that, good, we will listen, we will always try to improve, and we'll always work on one thing, and that is giving Cameroon and the Cameroonian people the best stade ever.
But we want to have a little bit of details about specific areas, because you just spoke globally, but can we have maybe some statistics or evaluation of the work?
Absolutely. Look, when you have...
Please come closer. Okay.
Like this?
Yes.
Okay. The point is, as we had promised previously since February, we have been attacking and working in all areas of the stadium with additional resources and dedicated and separate resources. So the state of advancement is as follows. For the main stadium, all the structural elements are here, almost 100%. Okay, of the material is here as promised. They arrived with the last ship that arrived in the end of May. When it comes to, and obviously the installation, as you can see, I mean, you know, it's extremely advanced, and by the end of this month, the risers or the main stadium bowl will be finished in terms of structures, and that will allow us to start with the roof.
And it is on that note that we come to the end of this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinox Television, during which we talked about evaluated or the evaluation of the CAF's readiness or Cameroon's readiness to host the 2019 AFCON Games ahead of the inspection visit of CAF officials to the country. We equally talked about Momo division in the northwest region of Cameroon that is praying for peace to return in the 2 Anglophone regions of Cameroon, and 7 civilians die as a result of Boko Haram attack in the far north region of the country. That is that for this edition of the news, viewers. So thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.